it was a year after I launched Lepanto and started doing a really focused, concerted effort on exposing the shenanigans going on at CCHD. They've had a massive decline in donations.
$1 billion with a B is a lot of money. And just recently, we discovered that the same people behind these organizations, like Tides, for instance, is also behind the pro-Palestinian protests that tried to raid the Met Gala last night.
Why? Well, either they actually don't believe in what the church teaches, or they don't care.
By the way, my name is Joe McLean. I host a radio program called A Catholic Take, where we look at the world through a Catholic lens. I'd love for you to hang out with us. If you like it, give it a thumbs up and let us know what you think in the comments below.
There's a great new report out from the Lepanto Institute, lepantoin.org. U.S. bishops quid pro quo with funding agencies, or I like to say, quid pro quo with the Antichrist, it seems. Michael Hitchborn, founder, president of Lepanto, joins us now. Good morning to you, Michael. Thanks for being on the team today.
Good morning, Joe. Thanks for having me on.
You guys have been reporting on these funding problems, these quid pro quos now for a very long time, actually. So I want to start with this. You texted me something that really got my attention last week. I'm glad we were able to get you on today to talk about it. Let's start with Ralph McLeod. Who is Ralph McLeod, and why is he no longer with the CCHD?
So Ralph McLeod was the executive director of the Catholic Campaign for Human Development, and I've had a long history with him back in 2009, 2010 when I was first investigating CCHD. I wound up having some long sit-down conversations with him to go over a lot of the problems that we were finding, and he would give me every excuse under the sun and every promise, we'll look into this. And he even swore up and down, we'll look into this and let you know what we find. And never, of course, would he ever tell us what they found, just that, we looked into it and everything's fine. Oh, really, Ralph? Care to share? Oh, no. This is, we already looked into it and it's fine. Oh, okay. Well, so fast forward to, I guess it was 2 weeks ago, and I get a quick little news blurb across my desk that says that Ralph McLeod is no longer with the CCHD. I thought, that's odd. How did that happen? And I was reading the article. The article was first published by The Pillar Catholic, and what they were saying is that it seems that the CCHD, ever since 2016, which is when it was a year after I launched Lepanto and started doing a really focused, concerted effort on exposing the shenanigans going on at CCHD, they've had a massive decline in their donations, their annual donations.
Praise God.
But they maintained their regular level of grant money. So they would be giving out about $15 million a year while only pulling in $8 million. In 2020, it was $4 million. In 2021, it was $6 million. So they had a running deficit of, I would say between $7 and $10 million for about 6 or 8 years. And they went from having a net set of assets of around $56 million to $8 million in 2022. And that trend was showing that they probably have nothing now.
Wow. Why would they do that? Why was it so important to them to continue on that they would, in fact, go into debt?
Well, if I were to guess, and this is only a guess, it would be to maintain the illusion that they were doing quite well, that our efforts were completely without effect, and also because, and what I found very interesting was that they had a huge bump in their grant making in 2020, which happened to be an election year. They went from their average 14 to 15 million to 18 million, and a lot of that money went to an organization called Faith in Action, which was actively lobbying for Democrat politicians. So
of course
it was. So there's a lot that was going on. It's hard to point to any one thing, but there definitely seems to be and intention to just run and run and run hot and hope that the money catches up, and it never did.
Oof. You know, I remember being at the press conference there in Virginia Front Royal for that big, huge expose, the report that you and the PRI released. And we had a chance to sit down and talk about it. That video is on the YouTube channel, by the way. And you've been on the show a few times since to talk about that. It just seems absolutely mind-blowing to me that the faithful basically are saying, we don't want to support this. And I think that's telling, right? We're not talking about a bunch of radical Catholics out there, fringe Catholics who are just raising the noise. The average Catholic doesn't want to support this anymore. I think that's true in the numbers. If they have lost all funding, that means the average, as Father Mateg would say, same typical Catholic parishioner is just not wanting to support this anymore. But it seems to fall on deaf ears at the USCCB. They continue, and your report states they continue to go into Capitol Hill to say, you guys got to keep funding these people. Oh, yeah, we don't agree with them. We don't like abortion or contraception or teaching, perverse sexual behavior, but you still got to fund them. Like, that's like schizophrenic. That's talking out of both sides of your mouth. Why do they do that?
Why? Well, either they actually don't believe in what the church teaches, or they don't care. That's the only conclusion I can come to, is that when you start putting money and your political ideologies above the Gospels, then you've completely lost the plot and the whole purpose of the Catholic Church. So I have to wonder if they follow the line of Judas, which places the value of things, well, not even the value of things, the price of things above the true value of what the church teaches.
You talk about those moments on Capitol Hill when they are trying to ask for that funding. Do you think, is this their get out of jail free card? Is this how they, like we used to say, CYA, they used to cover their bases by saying, yeah, we don't agree with their, abortion views or whatever. Like, well, again, it just seems really bizarre to, on one hand, say, yeah, these people do things that are absolutely contrary to everything good, true, and beautiful, our Catholic faith, but you still got to fund them. Like, is this politics that we're looking at here?
Well, it's kind of interesting, because what you're talking about is the fact that Catholic Relief Services and the USCCB were lobbying Congress to maintain large amounts of money going to USAID, PEPFAR, and the Global Fund.
Yeah.
And when they do this, they are actually lobbying for their own paycheck, because USAID, PEPFAR, and the Global Fund provide the largest amounts of grants to Catholic Relief Services. Wow. Around 80% of CRS's funding comes from those three agencies. The problem is, those three agencies are the world's largest suppliers of contraception and condoms. And what they also fund organizations like Planned Parenthood, for instance. I think it was USAID that recently said that they were giving grants to IPPF, the International Planned Parenthood Federation. So it's, you start stacking things up and you go, at what point do the bishops even recognize what it is that they are trying to ask for funding? In their own letter, they say, well, these organizations, they do some things and they fund some things that we don't agree with, but they do a lot of life-saving work and we need to keep that funding going. It's well, I don't care if they're setting up hospitals in third world countries and trying to help as many people as they can help, but at the same time, they're opening abortion clinics and handing out contraception and pornographic sex education manuals for kids. It's incongruous with their own mission. So how can you possibly say they're life-saving at the same time that they're dealing death?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. In your report, you also mentioned that PEPFAR has allocated over $1 billion, with a B, that's a B, over $1 billion to Catholic Relief Services since the year 2005. This does not include the money CRS has received through PEPFAR as a result of being a sub-partner or on other PEPFAR projects where CRS was not the principal recipient of the grant. $1 billion with a B is a lot of money. And just recently, we discovered that the same people behind these organizations, like Tides, for instance, is also behind the pro-Palestinian protests that tried to raid the Met Gala last night, where all the ladies wear the most ridiculous, costumes. It's just crazy the world we live in today. That these same groups run in the same circles, don't you think?
Yeah, it absolutely is. In fact, I remember, I guess it was about 10 years ago or so, I was looking at whether CRS had received funding from the Soros-funded organization called the Open Society? And yeah, absolutely. They were receiving funding from Soros, too. So, they don't really care who the funders are as long as they're getting their cut. And that's pretty disgusting on the one hand, but it fits in line with their philosophy, because what they're ultimately saying is that as long as we get our money, then I don't care what they do with the rest of what they've got. So they're going to continue to ask Congress to give them money to maintain that funding, so that they have that open flow of source funding as well. And it's just. It's Judas all over again, and it's pretty disgusting.
Isn't there a principle, the ends don't justify the means? So in trying to alleviate hunger, or homelessness or disease, or you name the issue, which are all good. We should be trying to do those things. We agree. This is the corporal works of mercy. We should live our faith. Our faith should be in action, not just static. We agree to that. But the ends don't justify the means. It would seem to me that this quid pro quo with these groups is a quid pro quo with the Antichrist himself, because anybody who is of the culture of death is on Team Antichrist. They're not on Team Christ. So, you think they've learned that lesson when they went and got their masters in theology or whatever other degrees there at the USCCB, don't you think?
Well, they've lost sight of the mission of the church. The church exists for the salvation of souls, period. End of story. And if you're not working towards the end of saving souls, then what you're doing is you're working towards the end of whatever else it is, which is not the mission of the church. So for them to go out and say, well, we want to raise this money to dig wells in Africa. Okay, fine. Digging wells in Africa is okay, and it's a good thing to do. But if you're not also working to save the souls of those individuals that you're attempting to serve bodily, then it's nothing. It is absolutely nothing. It does no real lasting good for the people that you're working. So they've lost sight of the purpose of the church, and they've turned it into a philanthropic organization that has nothing to do with the salvation of souls. And at some point you go, well, what's the purpose, or what is the point of having the word Catholic in the name at all, except that you get to collect for funding for your works on Sundays?
It seems like they just are drunk on the government teat.
Yeah.
That's where we're at, so. Right? They need to give up on this, back away. They need to repent, in my opinion. Public scandal should mean there's a public repentance. Isn't that the case?
That is exactly the case. Not just public repentance.
Will we ever see that out of the USCCB?
No. Are you kidding? No.
I am proud of what you have done and accomplished, you and others, of course, but Lepanto Institute has been leading the way for well more than a decade now on these issues, going back to Acorn. We all remember putting the acorns in the basket. Remember that? So Michael Hitchborn, I would say that your report is some of the fruit of hard labor over the last many years. So thank you, Michael, for your fidelity to Holy Mother Church and to the good, the true, and the beautiful, in spite of the fact that so many are wanting to dance with the devil a little bit.
Did you like that video? It's okay. You can admit it. It's perfectly fine. Hey, we cover the big stories of our day, from inside the church to outside the church to all points in between, and we do it from a Catholic perspective. It's called A Catholic Take. It's a radio program Monday through Friday. We live stream it right here on this channel, by the way, so make sure to subscribe, like, and share. We would be very grateful to you. And don't forget, you're going to want to watch this video right here because you don't want to miss anything.